Magi-Nation, a cartoon series based on a card game with a similar name. I've been avoiding doing this video, but for some reason you guys kept asking for it for over a year. So I'm knuckling under and finally making a video around it. Please, stop. I made the video. It's here. Here it is. I read all your comments. I saw your DMs. You guys were so persistent on me making this one video for so long. I stopped ignoring you. I listened. Please just share the video. Now, the card game was released in late 2000, clearly and openly inspired by Magic the Gathering, which, you know, just like every other card game. Apparently their approach to the game was to be a mid-level complexity between Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, since Pokemon is a very easy card game to get into, and Magic can be daunting to get into, which doesn't really hold much water since anybody can get into any card game no matter what age, and Magic is actually very approachable compared to, say, Yu-Gi-Oh!, which kids still get into. So I'd argue the entire approach was flawed from the beginning, but that was their approach nonetheless. Some of you probably know Magi-Nation better through the TV show, as is the typical way people discover these things, and this show manages to do several things right. So the show starts off, oh wow, geez, is anyone getting chaotic vibes from this? Hang on, who animated this? Dongwoo Animation, who also did the animation for Chaotic Seasons 2 and 3. So yeah, it's literally the same people. Well, now that that's out of the way, this creepy bad guy named Argrim was sealed in a book. He's about to return. These elf people need to find the final dreamer in order to stop him. This kid named Tony gets isekai'd into another world. And it turns out there's 3 final dreamers, the main 3 characters, so yeah. And they gotta collect the Dream Stones in order to stop the big bad guy. So we got the Chosen Ones, we have MacGuffins. It's a good time all around. Also, they summon monsters from the Dream Realm to fight, so that's cool.
With this animite, I imagine prop.
And this was made during the time when everyone was trying to copy the success of Pokemon, so they have a capture method for these creatures. However, Chaotic has scanning, that makes sense. Pokemon has catching, which actually also makes sense. Magi-Nation has, well, I don't really know what to call it. You just kind of prove yourself to them somehow. It's never really clear. And they don't really elaborate on it that much.
Congratulations! Call me anytime!
And I get that they probably wanted it to be a more humane way of capturing monsters. I could get that they wanted to show the monsters choosing the Magi. A good example is something like saving one of them from the bad guys so that they feel indebted. That's a good way to use it. And I guess in this manner, it's more personal than just catching them. You actually get to see them make a friend. So I guess I kind of like it this way. However, I will say that it's not as satisfying as the other methods like Pokemon catching Pokemon with Pokeballs. But it works better for the flow of the story, so yeah, it's pretty nice. Every episode has an educational element to it. Sometimes it works with the story, like how they teach about marking your path in unfamiliar territory, like when they first went into the core, you know, the evil bad guy's realm. But then there's some episodes where it doesn't really work, and they just start throwing out facts.
Because slime molds move and lack a special chemical found in cell walls called chitin, it is not a fungus but a protist, the same family as a one-celled protozoa.
If I had to be honest, I don't really care. The majority of the time, they teach the stuff well, even if it's simple. And I like it when shows like this have a small educational segment. It makes learning fun. And it doesn't really detract from the story that much, so I'm very okay with it. Also, totally random, and isn't foreshadowing at all, but Tony's grandfather was a Magi. Crazy, right? I'm certain this won't appear later in the series. Ha 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 ha. Orwin becomes infected with void energy and becomes a shadow magi, and he's like basically the mentor of the group. They find a field of flowers when they went to the core, and the seeds create shadow geysers, which basically create portals to and from the core, and Agram plans to use it so he can be freed. They try to save Orwin by taking that big magical staff away from Agram, but it actually fails, and now they don't have a mentor, which I totally expected this issue to be resolved in this episode, but I'm glad it wasn't. I don't like it when these problems are resolved super fast. So they're trying to find all the Dreamstones, but this butthead burns the Book of the Elders. Except, not really, because the Book of Elders is a permanent item that can't be removed from a player's inventory. They eventually catch Orwin, and with the help of Grandma Lady and the leaders of all the Moonlands, they use super special togetherness magic to heal Orwin. Yay! So they wrap up finding all the Dreamstones, but then they find out they need a final Dreamstone. And of course, Agram has it.
We'll just have to come down to the core and take it from you.
That's the spirit.
Except he lied. He doesn't actually have it.
Catch.
Hey, you said you had it.
I lied.
Turns out he hid it, and now his big garden of shadow geyser seeds has been planted, so he's on the verge of escaping the core and doing his evil thing. So they gotta bottle up all those geysers. So, crazy thing, never saw it coming, but it turns out the final Dreamstone is on Earth. So they find it, go back to the Moonlands, and then...
I am Rock Reaper!
Okay. And then they put the stone in the book and slurp him up, completing their quest, and Agram is gone forever. Literally, the core is even gone. Like, happy ending. And then there's season 2. So now there's a bunch of void energy, and the only one that can fix it is this great Hyren. Basically a dream creature, but they're also protectors of their realm, so they're stronger. Also, Agram isn't really dead, and he possessed a dream creature. Oh man, I totally didn't see that coming. Who could have guessed? So they go around collecting Guardian Hyrens for their quest. Then they find out that the core is actually reforming, which conceptually speaking is actually kind of cool. So in an attempt to suck away void energy from dream creatures, they capture the creature that Agram hid himself in, and they find out he's back. And Agram tells them that he wants to summon the final Hyren himself.
Rest assured, the final Hyren will be formed. By me. Then, nothing can stop me from conquering the Moonlands.
They get this powerful staff, which is supposed to help them on their quest for some reason, I don't know.
Or I'll turn your precious city to ashes.
We can't imagine a single Hyren, because one just isn't enough. You see, when it comes to using Realm's honor, we've been practicing.
Tony, no! Your vision showed your final battle occurring in Cold. You must conserve your Hyren's energy and get to that realm immediately.
Oh, come on! If he can defeat him now, what does it matter? This is what I dislike when prophecies are used in stories. If it's used the wrong way, it takes the agency from the characters. It's not the heroes accomplishing a task, it's them matching all the requirements on a checklist. And in that case, it's really the prophecy doing the work, not the people, it's not the characters. Prophecies are supposed to create tension, but when you use them to just prolong the plot, then it's lazy. Rick Riordan used prophecy well, because it would always have a, like, if it has a twist, it's like, oh man, we thought we were accomplishing everything, but turns out we interpreted it wrong. That's why I like the vagueness of prophecies sometimes. You know, it makes it to where you have to do some guesswork, and it's not, and there's actually like a lot of the agency from the characters is just trying to figure out the prophecy. It's more like a puzzle than anything else. But in this situation, it's just used very poorly.
Wow, I didn't expect a clue like this.
Yeah, neither did I. And no, I did not edit this. They use photorealistic pictures of historical figures in the final episode. It was kind of a smack in the face. So they get all the Hirons, and then they find out
The last step to forming the final Hyron is something I saw in my vision. The key to forming the final Hyron is that whoever summons it must merge with it themselves.
oh, dang. I guess Tony is gonna die. Well, sucks to be him.
What are you doing?
Taking your place in the merge.
Oh, come on! So they summon the final Hyron, it takes away all the void energy, cures the planet, and everyone's happy. Big happy ending. In truth, this show is fun. It's fun to watch. However, I don't recommend watching it now. It doesn't really stand on its own. The problem with these kind of shows is that they are made to enrich something else. Pokemon, the anime, is typically made to enrich the games, and the card game is made to enrich the game. Or in the case of Yu-Gi-Oh!, the anime, actually Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a bad example. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a very complicated example. That doesn't work well. Like with Bakugan, the anime is made to enrich the game. This is the same case. It's not necessarily a riveting story, it's not necessarily a story that's made to make a statement or really connect with its audience. It does its job pretty well, it's just that's not the goal of this show. The goal is to convince you to go buy the cards and to have a deeper meaning between the cards. Be like, oh hey, I recognize this beast, it was in the show, and you have a concept of this beast's or this character's personality, and it helps you connect with the cards that you bought, and it's proven to be a very enriching and fun aspect to it. It adds a level of fun that would not be present otherwise. Really, the TV show came second to the card game, and I want to make sure that's very clear because sometimes I make some of these videos and I focus on the TV show or maybe the movies, and I don't really get across the fact that it's just one aspect of something much larger, like my Bionicle video. But there are some people who only watched the show, and some people didn't even realize it's a card game. But the people who discovered the card game know that the card game is the core of Magi-Nation.
The thing that really got me into Magi-Nation was it really had this attitude and these unique mechanics. Instead of using like resource cards, which with like Magic and Pokemon you'd have to fill half your deck with things like lands or energy cards, which are things whose sole purpose is to be put onto the field to allow other cards to do things. But what Magi-Nation did was instead, in order to play creatures and spells, you would take your character's life points in order to pay those costs. And in a bit of a unique twist, if you use the life points to summon a creature, those life points would transfer from your Magi onto the creature. So the creatures are like extensions of this Magi's power, which was really cool. And in a unique twist, as long as you had any energy anywhere on your side of the field, whether it be on your Magi or on a creature, you were not considered to be defeated.
A newsletter was released back when they made these things for card games that detailed strategies for the game and stories from the world of Magi-Nation. Sadly, there were only 6 issues, and I can't find any physical copies. A lot of people prefer to point fans to the Game Boy game, arguing that the story in the Game Boy game is much better than the show, and much more enriching than the show could ever be.
What it does is it takes the whole idea of you casting your life points to summon creatures and adds that with an element where you could level up and get more points to work with and summon stronger and stronger creatures. It's a little bit short and it has a few clunky elements, like the spellcasting's not that great, but otherwise it is an incredibly good game where you actually gain new creatures by defeating them and saving the crystals that are left behind when they disappear back to the dream plane, called the Animite, and you get that turned into rings and use that to summon the big powerful creatures. It is a lot of fun. If you can track this game down, I highly recommend it.
And they also had a Japanese version, and they completely changed how Tony looked because they were afraid Tony looked too American, so they Japanified him for the localization. It's a little strange and uncomfortable, but it's basically the same game. There was even an MMO made for Magi-Nation called Battle for the Moonlands. It was one of those games where you click on wherever you wanted to go and wasn't exactly well made. I have no doubt fans of Magi-Nation enjoyed it when it came out, but it's aged like milk. Boy, it's been some time since I've done a pack opening video. And boy does it feel good to be back in the saddle. So I have 2 packs. One is the Magi-Nation Duel. I think this is the first one. Don't quote me on that. Just 1 pack, not gonna make this take long. And another one is the Japanese version of it because I saw that and I'm like, dude, that's so cool. And I wanted to see that because I'm getting very interested in Japanese cards. I'm also learning Japanese. So yeah, I can actually read this. This is katakana. It's the system that they use for foreign words. It says Magi-Nation, unsurprisingly. So let's start off with the first one right here and just you know, re-experience, for some of you guys, re-experience what it's like to open up a good Magi-Nation booster pack. I hope I get a good card. If I do get a good card, chances are I won't realize I have a good card, so please don't hate me when I completely bypass it. We have Robes of the Ages. I think this is an uncommon. The less dots in the corner here mean it's more rare. Like, you know, if there's more dots, there's more of them. Simple logic. Relic Mirror, pretty sure these are, they're actual relics if they have a hexagonal border. Gar, this is a Magi, it tells you right there. We have Jayla. Yeah, she's a rare. I just realized she's a rare. We have a rare. Jayla is a rare, put that to the side. Kathet, very common, it's a dream creature. Sphore, Staff of Hiron, ooh, cool. The Hirons are like the protectors of the realms. They're like, I don't know, gods, demigods? I'll say demigods. They're like demigods. For someone who has no idea about the show, it's not really an apt description of them, but that's the closest I can think of for someone who's outside looking in. Parmalag. We have Zix Minor. Took me a second. We have Biswag. And there's no foil. Thought you got a foil in every pack. I am sad. Well, it's okay, we have a second chance, because we have the Japanese version right here. Let's see if we get a little bit more lucky. So the best I can make out of this is it's Uniba Seru Ruriku, I think. That's the problem with katakana. Their phonetics don't really translate well with how we speak in English. Oh, Staff of the Hiron, well that's easy. That's the thing about Japanese cards. They feel like they have an extra layer of coating. These are slicker. These feel nicer. This is why I like the Japanese cards. They do a better job. Their printing in Japan is just better. Orosu Kurichiya. Still don't know what that's supposed to be. I'm reading the bottom one because I don't know that much kanji, so I'm keeping to the katakana. Oh right, below it is supposed to be the type. That's not its name at all. That's the symbol for water. Katakana means it's supposed to be a foreign word, like an English word, but they just turned it into their phonetics. So that's Orapus. Orapus? I don't know. This, I just have no idea. I like how they still have the illustration is by Christopher. But then again, if you look at a lot of Japanese cards, like in Vanguard, the illustration is still either the kanji or just, you know, what they're called in Japanese. So, like, I guess it's the same over there. Kanji. And this is Huirun. Hiron. Deep Hiron. Got it. Got one. Hey, I know this. The Deep Hiron was our rare, by the way. This is our rare card. I can see why. That's a good rare. This one I've seen quite a bit. This is on the cover of the packs, as you can see. Mushroom, Majuruma, Huirun, Hiron, Mushroom Hiron. I know Japanese. Oh, there's one more. Hey, we have an English equivalent of this. It's Balamant Pup. That's what it is. It's Balamant Pup. Oh, the coloring is a little bit different. This is a little bit lighter. The differences you'll find when you import foreign products. So, what happened to Magi-Nation? In short, the game became incredibly imbalanced. Let me give you the broad strokes of the game. The goal is to defeat your opponent's Magi. The life points of your Magi is in the top left corner right here. You summon creatures, attack, and go back and forth. You cast spells, create relics, and all that good stuff.
Now, when Magi-Nation started off, it of course, borrowed the 5-color, 5-region mechanic from Magic the Gathering. You had the water, the fire, the air, the ground, and the nature tribe. You see, what they did was they came up with a region called the Core. They were released in the very first expansion, Awakening, and their gimmick was that their cards were really powerful, but you could not build mixed regions decks with them. Here's the thing about that, is mixed region decks were already so cumbersome. I mean, you had to pay a penalty to play a spell or a creature from another region, and you could not play the all-important relics from other regions at all. So nobody was making a mixed deck anyway, so what the core had was basically a ton of power with zero downside.
Not only that, but the most powerful card, the Dark Twins, was subscription exclusive. However, in retrospect, now that we've seen a lot of digital card games, Magi-Nation would actually work better as a digital card game if you ask me. Because eventually you just have so many dice and trying to keep track of so much energy on so many cards that it gets annoying, and if somebody bumps the table, the game is basically ruined. If somebody bumps the table in Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like, oh crud, well that's a monster card, goes in the monster card zone. Well, that's a spell card, goes in the spell card zone. It's pretty easy to set it back up, but for something like this, where it's just so many different little pieces, it's hard to keep track. And having a computer to do that for you is just way easier. Like, your creatures don't heal at the beginning of your turn. That sounds like something that needs to be in a digital card game, because that's one of the advantages of it being digital. It can keep track of that variable. But in this case, I mean, that's the reason why in Magic and in Yu-Gi-Oh! At the beginning, all the damage is reset at the beginning of your turn. All the damage is reset, and it's just to take a mental load off of the players. In 2008, there was an attempt to reboot the game. You can see that there's these pictures of the new cards released from Gen Con in 2008. Which, according to what others were saying on the subreddit that I got this picture from, are apparently nearly impossible to find now. You'll now find a dedicated fan base for Magi-Nation, most of which have defaulted to using Tabletop Simulator in order to play and even hold tournaments. You know, if there's one thing I can say, it's that it's very rare for me to find a community around a dead franchise that's so active. It really speaks to the passion that the players have for the game. And it's always really nice to see people who have that level of passion for something. If for no other reason alone, I like Magi-Nation simply because of the heart the fans have for it. There is apparently word that the game designer, Philip Tavel, is trying to start the game again, most likely making it into a board game rather than a TCG. However, I have no idea if this is legitimate. It's only hearsay on forums on the internet, and I wouldn't get your hopes up too high. The rights for Magi-Nation are still split between several companies. If he does want to start the game up again, it's going to take him a while to do it. You might notice that on a whole lot of Magi-Nation cards is the illustrator Matt Holmberg. Turns out that he's still doing stuff. He's an illustrator and most recently worked on the art for Dungeon Party. So an imbalanced game really killed it. It's a tale as old as time, and I doubt that it'll ever stop being the reason for new card games' deaths. Sadly, that's all I have for this video. I have a Patreon if you want to support the channel. Also, special thanks to Kohdok for helping me make this video. His knowledge on this subject was immensely helpful. Stay beautiful, and keep playing.